And a good Saturday evening wherever you're checking us out here on the BetQL Network. Produced by Jake Noecker with my co-host Brendan Tobin. I'm the sports machine, Sean Levine. Good to have you along for the ride on this 302 evening, UFC 302. The Octagon has made its way to Newark, New Jersey. And this show is going to be fun. It's going to get a little bit rude later on. We're going to bring on Rude Boy Randy Brown. It's going to get a little gangster also. We're going to bring in the American gangster himself, Chael Sonnen. So lots of guests lined up. None better, though, than my co-host Brendan Tobin. This is a fight we've been talking about now for a while. At the top, Islam Makhachev, the favorite. No surprise there, taking on the diamond, Dustin Poirier. Here's the surprise to me, that the line hasn't changed much. Dustin Poirier, as of right now at BetMGM, is still right around 4-1, plus 400. Did you think that at some point people would come to their senses and maybe this line would shrink a little bit?
Well, it's been interesting because I feel like a lot of the coverage this week around Dustin has, almost been that like this is his last ride, that there's got to be some magic in the air. There's got to be some kind of thing that goes his way and breaks his way to get the win. So I don't know if he's almost felt like in the coverage a little bit too much of a charity case, which he is not. I mean, I just think the guy's flat out good enough to go out there and win the fight. But I think that maybe that's why the odds haven't necessarily swung that much, because people feel like he is this just gigantic underdog story to go out there and pull this off. But man, you have a guy who's that good. We talked about this with this specific opponent, a mere year ago with Alexander Volkanovski, and that you just don't get fighters this good at this number. The value's just too juicy for a lot of us to pass up. And that's not a dig at Islam Makhachev. It's just a matter of, man, you're just telling me there's no shot in the world over 5 rounds. Dustin Poirier can't find his chin at one point. Not enough for me not to, go away from some of the props where they're at. So, yeah, I'm not too surprised that the numbers haven't moved, but I'm kind of happy about it because I feel like Dustin's going to have a chance to get a lot of people paid.
It's funny you bring up that fight about a year ago, the first time around, between Volkanovski and the champ Islam, because you and I both thought the number's way too good for Volk. What did we end up getting? Plus 350, close to 4-1 that night. We saw the fight go down. Ultimately, the cards told us that Islam won the fight. You and I both watched and rewatched the fight and still think that Volk won the fight. The only reason I bring that up is to say that Islam is not invincible. He hasn't technically lost a fight inside the UFC octagon in 9 years. But this is not Khabib. We're not talking about a guy that wins every single round. He's a little bit vulnerable. If you're going to bet the underdog at Dustin Poirier at 4-1, what do you think is his best path to victory tonight?
Well, I think for Dustin Poirier, his best path is the hands. There's been so much coverage about the guillotine and, if he's going to jump it, if he's going to go and try and find it. I don't doubt that he'll try it at some point over a 5-round fight, but what makes him special, especially in chaotic exchanges, are his hands. It's some of the best boxing in the sport. He could just cause such damage from such short range. It's usually the check the check hook you don't see coming that will land on his opponent, and that just changes the dynamic. We've seen it against Conor. We've seen it against Justin Gaethje. We've seen it against Benoit Saint Denis in his latest win. So that's always going to be his best path to go get this done. It's just a matter of, can he have the patience? Can he have the gas tank in those times where Islam might take him down? He's a black belt in jiu-jitsu, so can he avoid the choke? Can he not give up his neck? Can he not give up his back at those certain points? And if he's able to do that, then, yeah, he's definitely going to have a chance, especially with the big difference between Islam and Khabib, because there's so many comparisons between them, is that Islam will throw a little bit. Islam doesn't mind standing up there. We've seen him, look impressive. He's just coming off a head kick KO against Volkanovski. Did damage to Charles Oliveira, dropped him before he went and buzzsawed him and submitted him. So I think that this is a fighter who's not quite like Khabib, where he can fight with a little emotion. He can see some things that are there. And it's almost like he should be more Khabib to probably make this an easier fight for himself. But I don't know if you can take a fighter away from who he is. And Islam has been tremendous, and I don't know if he's just going to go at this thing just trying to lay and pray.
Coming up later on in the show, we'll get you the method to the madness on all the fights at UFC 302, how they're going to finish, who's going to finish the fight, when it's going to go, knockout, sub. We're going to make some money together with the method to the madness a little bit later on in the show. Which guy do you think is better in the main event if the fight goes the other way? What I'm trying to ask you is, if it stays on its feet, is that a fight that Islam can win? If it's a fight that is grappling, wrestling, if it's on the mat, where obviously Islam wants to take it, is there any way Dustin Poirier can win that type of fight?
Nah, I don't see a fight on the ground outside of the absolute 23-1 Hail Mary guillotine popping out of nowhere, him being on his back and this being on the ground. I don't see that being a big method for success. Now, if he could somehow just put it early on in the fight just to have Islam think about it, okay, but I think it's probably just best. Can he just keep this in his playpen, which is standing up? So I guess my answer would be Islam on the stand-up game for sure has some success. I mean, we've seen him have success with his hands. And I think the one thing is when you go in there against these Dagestani wrestlers, I just think that their hands are so slept on initially because everybody's so worried about the takedown that opens up a lot of stuff for them, because you have to be cautious. You have to be wary of not getting taken to the ground and having your gas tank taken away. So if I had to say, who is the more versatile fighter in here, who's going to have more success in more places, probably Islam. I mean, there is a reason why the line is where it is. It's because, the guy doesn't have a whole lot of holes to his game. It's just a matter of, if there are opportunities there, can Dustin pull it off with the plus side of the money where it is right now? Yeah, for sure.
A million storylines for whichever guy wins and loses the fight. If Dustin wins, maybe he retires. If Dustin loses, maybe he retires. If Islam wins, maybe he, calls out the winner of the Conor fight, against who knows where this thing goes. So there's a lot on the line tonight. Obviously, a belt as well. Brendan Tobin, Sports Machine, Sean Levine, talking some fighting here on the BetQL network. Let's move on to the co-main, BT. Paulo Costa, the underdog in the co-main at 2-1. Sean Strickland, a minus 250 favorite. Strickland's a guy that I'm not sure why. I just have trouble giving him his flowers, only because I guess I've seen him look pretty average, and then I've also seen him look great. Like he could beat anybody that night that he beat Adesanya. I'd say a lot of the same things about Paulo Costa, right? Like we've seen him step into the cage and we're like, it's muscles and he's kind of funny, but not the best fighter in the world. And then we've seen him look like a world beater. Do you know which guy we're going to see on either side tonight?
Yeah, I don't know, man. I may be looking foolish, come 1 a.m. today, but I feel like this is one of the easier fights to figure out on the whole card. I mean, like Sean Strickland feels like a stock that's going up. Paulo Costa feels like somebody who, yes, looks great. And if you were to say, who do you want to take that to the nude beach with as your body, you'd probably go Paulo Costa. But if you're going to say, who do I want to win a fight with, I'm going to go Sean Strickland. I mean, Sean Strickland right now has an argument. He should be walking around with 12 pounds of gold around his waist. That's how close the last fight was to DDP. We've seen him, have as great a performance against Israel Adesanya over 5 rounds as anybody has had. I just think that we have two guys at different places right now. Sean was saying this week, he's like, you got to get lucky to beat me. And I think he's right. I think that unless Paulo Costa comes out with like a Leon Edwards-like head kick KO, he's got to throw something. And mind you, everybody, this is a 5-round fight. So, I mean, immediately I'm going, cardio advantage to Sean Strickland, has a chance to dictate his game plan, maybe let Paulo Costa, shoot his gas tank a little bit. I don't know, Sean. I agree with Sean Strickland. I think that Paulo Costa, it's a fun stylistic fight in theory, but Paulo Costa hasn't knocked anybody out in, by my count, 2018. That's 6 years. Is that 6 years, everybody? It's almost 6 years. July of 2018, the last time he knocked somebody out. That person was Uriah Hall. Before that, it was Johnny Hendricks. So these are has-been names that are on Paulo Costa's knockout resume. So I don't see him winning a decision. I certainly don't see him, and I don't know if he's got a knockout in him against Sean. Sean's too hard to hit.
Well, Sean's not exactly Chuck Liddell. He's not knocking out everybody either. He's more punches and bunches. So I'm curious, you're so confident in Sean Strickland winning the fight. Later on in the show, BT's going to tell us how Sean Strickland wins the fight, because that's how we're going to make some money on the BetMGM app. Kevin Holland fights tonight against King Michael, plus 240 for the underdog. Kevin Holland, minus 300. Kevin Holland, just the ultimate. You got to sit down and watch him fight. It might not last long. He could finish it in any fashion. Yet we always talk about his kind of gatekeeper status. Feels like what I'm trying to say is he's been in a lot of fights like this one tonight.
Yeah, he's been in a lot of fights like this one tonight, but he also, is in that realm of like he's like an MLB hitter. Like usually 1 out of 3, he's for sure going to get. And Olacechek and him both coming off of losses from UFC 299. Olacechek has lost, I think, his last 2 by sub, which is interesting because the biggest method on, or the closest method on in this is Kevin Holland by sub at plus 260, him by knockouts plus 270, and him by decisions plus 290. So, those are all pretty close, but the number one of them is him by sub. So maybe there's a vulnerability that some people see there with Olacechek, but I like Kevin Holland. I think this is a good one for him to bounce back with, to get right. I think it's set up for him there.
I like Holland too, actually by submission until you gave me those numbers. I don't think that's quite enough money, so I might have to change that when we get to the method of the madness. Nico Price is a plus 220 underdog on this card against Alex Morono, the minus 225 favorite. I was looking at Nico Price because I remember him as the hybrid, right? Coming up, getting a lot of hype, beating people up. This guy hasn't won in a minute. In fact, he's lost 4 out of his last 5 fights, and he's lost 6 out of his last 8. This feels like one that Nico Price kind of needs to win.
Yeah, for sure. The records looked really dicey. The last time we can't thank Nico Price. He did give us the Goosey's moment of Robbie Lawler getting to go out on a win. So we do appreciate that.
Yeah, but that's he doesn't appreciate it. He got his ass.
No, I know.
Out.
I mean, I get it. I just want to tell you, thank you for giving us the Goosey's. That's all I'm saying. But
that was awesome.
I will say, yeah, Moreno just feels like he's riding a little bit more high. They have fought in the past, and Nico Price did get the win before popping for weed. So it was technically a no contest, but he did physically knock him out. That was many, many, many years ago. So, I think a lot of times in MMA, we kind of throw rematches that far away. We don't really think about them too much, but it did happen. So just to take that into account, Nico Price is maybe going into this with a little bit of a mental edge because he knows that he can beat Moreno. But I think that Alex is the rightful favorite in this one, and I would like to see him get his. I would expect to see him get his hand raised.
You know who else is on this card tonight, BT? The Rude Boy, Randy Brown. But before he fights tonight, he joins us right here on Tapped Out. Don't go anywhere. About 20 minutes from now, we're going to sit down with Rude Boy Randy Brown. He's the favorite against EZD, minus 185. Randy Brown's got all sorts of highlights, all sorts of finishes. It just feels like a good matchup for him tonight.
It does, and it's interesting, his talk all this week and was about, the respect or the lack of respect that he feels like he's getting in the welterweight division. Because, man, quite frankly, Sean, you look at Randy Brown's resume, especially over his last 7 fights, his only loss is to Jack Della Maddalena, a top 5 welterweight.
With a bunch of highlights sprinkled in there, too.
Yeah, and so it's pretty crazy that Randy Brown hasn't found his way at least into the bottom of the rankings. I mean, you look at like Vicente Luque, who's been a little bit on the way down. We've talked about the dicey record of Kevin Holland, who, yes, certainly is, one of the more recognized fighters out there, but I don't necessarily know that he's better than Randy Brown. Joaquin Buckley's back to having a moment, but you're looking at this bottom 15. I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that he can be in the class of these guys, the Neil Magny's, the Michael Venom Pages. So if he does have another highlight tonight, it could be finally him knocking on the door of getting in there. He certainly does need to make a run at, his age being in his early 30s. He wants to start that now. He's been around for a hot minute, but pretty crazy to see that because he does stay active, and his only loss being to JDM. You would think that this guy would get a lot more respect. His last knockout was probably a knockout of the year candidate. So I don't know. We'll dive into more of it with him, but I just think that he's not only fighting for a win tonight, I think he's looking for a little bit more respect in this division.
Hear from the man himself, Randy Brown, when he joins Tapped Out, coming up a little bit less than a half hour from now. We've also got Roman Kopylov taking on Cesar Almeida. In fact, he's not the only Almeida on this card. We've got a couple of them. My boy Grant Dawson is fighting. We'll get to those fights on the other side. And the Jake Paul, Mike Tyson fight, not on for now. We'll break it all down on the other side right here on the BetQL Network. Welcome back, Tapped Out here on the BetQL Network. It is fight night from Newark, New Jersey, UFC 302. Islam Makhachev hasn't lost a fight inside the octagon in 9 years, taking on the Diamond, Dustin Poirier, who might have the best resume of any fighter, not just currently, but in UFC history. I was looking at it. The guy's fought Khabib, he's fought Conor McGregor a few times, he's fought Gaethje a couple of times, he's fought everybody. So I don't think the fight is going to be too big for him. On the undercard, let's talk about a couple of these fights we didn't get to before we get to the news, BT. Roman Kopylov takes on Cesar Almeida. That's the most even fight on the entire card right now at BetMGM. That's a pick'em. Do you have an early lean in that fight?
I think I'm leaning Kopylov. on the early goings on that one. I agree that it is a pretty even fight.
The last time we saw Jailton Almeida, a couple of things happened. One, he didn't look great, and two, I got tricked and looked like an idiot and thought that he was playing with the lightsaber Star Wars style. So I'm not going to say anything about that again, but I do know that he fights Alex Romanov. Right now you can get Almeida at a heavy favorite number at minus 350, plus 260 for the underdog. Are we still on Almeida at minus 350?
It's a tough number to swallow. I mean, I'd probably am going to go get him by sub. I mean, we'll get to methods later. That's probably where I find it a little bit more tolerable. But he obviously needs a big time performance. I mean, like, look, you're the toast of the town in the heavyweight division. Everybody's thinking, oh, he's one of the newcomers. We got this new blood with Aspinall and Pavlovich, and Almeida's coming up. And Almeida, has had a main event, didn't go great. Wasn't exactly a thriller. And then, has the loss down at 299 to Curtis Blades. Curtis Blades now fighting for the interim title. And you thought that he was playing with the lightsaber. So, like, he doesn't really have a lightsaber either. So there's a lot of things that he needs to get his life right with. And not only that, like, dude, he was supposed to be on the main card and they bumped him. I mean, they bumped him for Nico, Price, and Moreno, a couple of basically journeymen. So, yeah, he's obviously in big time need of an impressive performance, I think, here.
Biggest favorite on this entire card, Grant Dawson minus 600 against Joe Solecki at plus 450. All right, let's talk a little bit of boxing. A fight that I admitted, the closer that we were getting toward it, I started looking forward to it even more, and I had a fight party all planned, and I was going to bring my nephew over, and I was going to say, hey, kid, this is what a Mike Tyson fight night feels like. It's different from everything else. I don't give a damn if he's fighting some Disney, YouTube, Jake Paul kid. I don't really care what happens. I just wanted that night to happen, and now I don't know that it's ever going to. Technically, they tell us it's postponed. As you pointed out in our group text message with you, me, and our producer, Jake, yesterday or 2 days ago when they officially announced that this fight was going to be postponed. This is what happens with old people like Mike Tyson. Injuries, and they slow down. At this point, how sure are you that we ever see this thing?
I really hope that we don't, and I think we can just scrap the idea and just move on because Mike Tyson has had a lot of medical issues. This is not the first time that he has had medical issues. Also, it seems like he has a lot of issues flying out of MIA just for whatever it's worth. But
the airport kind of sucks. Man, the shoeless is great, but the airport kind of sucks.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. It is chaotic, especially if you don't have priority. You better get there 5 hours before your flight. That being said, he's going to be 58 in a mere matter of days. People that old shouldn't be fighting, and it's noble that he wants to do it, and I don't disagree. Could he beat Jake Paul? Probably, maybe, fine. Do I need Mike Tyson to beat Jake Paul? No. I mean, his legacy is set in my mind. It was just kind of a cool thing, I guess, for him to make a lot of money. But, dude, let's just recap how this has gone thus far. They're fighting in Texas, where they're going to be fighting with giant gloves to protect Mike Tyson. They're fighting 2-minute rounds. What they say is to promote action. It's because he's 58 and he needs 2-minute rounds. Now he's had a medical ulcer issue on a plane where he can no longer train. Why are we still trying to have Mike Tyson fight? Can we please stop? I'm begging you guys. I'm telling you, the shell will look great. He will look pretty intimidating. He would come out with the towel and the black shorts, and we'll all feel nostalgic. It's cool. Do me a favor, fire up YouTube, have a nostalgia night, watch old Mike Tyson footage, because he shouldn't be fighting. He's nearly 60.
This guy. Are you serious? Is he, you know those rascals that people drive around in the grocery store? Is he on a
Yes.
rascal yet? If he ain't on a rascal, then he can get in the
He
ring
has
and fight.
been.
He has he?
He has been.
Really?
You want to know when that was? When he was 55.
Okay, all right.
You think it's gotten better with age? What are we doing,
Doesn't look
dude?
like it. Okay.
We got to
Well,
look.
now that I have that information, I'm with you. He probably shouldn't be fighting. Although now it just leaves another. This was going to be the fight for Jake Paul that from my opinion, that was the most interesting. And a lot of them have been. I'll admit that. When he fought, what's our boy's name? The slam dunk, Nate Robinson. I was like,
Yep.
Maybe Nate Robinson's a great athlete and he's kind of short, but let's see what he can do. And the fact that he got knocked out in the fashion that he did, I was like, okay, I'm glad that I watched that. The Nate Diaz fight was entertaining. The Anderson fight, I guess, enough. The Askren fight was fun because he got his ass knocked out too. All I'm saying is that I was looking forward to this particular opponent in Mike Tyson more than any other, because no matter what the result, as long as somebody got finished, it was going to be a sight to withhold. If Mike Tyson, as you keep pointing out, at 58 years old, a couple of years away from collecting Social Security, went out there and knocked out the kid on his ass, everybody be cheering it. And yeah, everybody be a little bit sad if the opposite happened, but it'd be kind of cool too to see Jake Paul knock out Mike Tyson.
Look, the whole point of it, we all want to see Jake Paul. This is, look, Jake Paul has done some noble things for boxing. He certainly brought a lot of attention to boxing.
Yes.
I'm not a Jake Paul hater. I've just, like, some of this has been weird where he's, tried to make himself into a champion. The whole point of it was it's supposed to be freak shows. Like, it's supposed to be, what if Jake Paul fights a really old, great boxer? Or what if Jake Paul fights a really good UFC fighter, but he's a lot bigger than him? Like, the whole point of the Jake Paul thing is for him to be fighting freaks. That's what it's supposed to be. It's not supposed to be him trying to prove to everybody that he's a good boxer. Who cares? He lost to Tommy Fury quite decisively, who's a reality TV star and has a famous fighter's last name, and he lost to him in boxing. So I know he's not a good boxer. It's okay. That's not the point. The point is, can Jake Paul knock a dude out, or can Jake Paul get knocked out? So, but everything's got to have its limit, dude. And while it's a great idea and everybody was excited for it because Mike Tyson still withholds this Americana, nostalgic meaning to all of us, he's an icon. And even in his last fight against Roy Jones, which was an exhibition, did monster business. It's one of the reasons Jake Paul got as big as he did. But come on, everything reaches its expiration date. 58 giant pillow gloves, 2-minute rounds, now a medical emergency, he can't train. Every training footage you see of him is nothing but 15 seconds with jump cuts in between. So I just ask, like, what are we doing here? I get it. We all want to see it. He shouldn't be doing it. Move on. It happens. Sometimes you don't get the fights you want.
Nah, hook his ass up to an IV bag and some oxygen and get him out there. Brendan Tobin, Sports Machine, Sean Levine here on the BetQL Network. We mentioned Nate Diaz. His big brother, Nick Diaz, is back fighting Vicente Luque. I'm excited only because it has the Nick Diaz name. And then I thought about it and I was like, isn't the last time we saw Nick Diaz when he kind of quit and sat down in that octagon against Robbie Lawler? I'm very surprised that this is news. Like, I thought that Nick Diaz was done in the UFC.
Yeah, I was a little surprised too. It kind of came out of nowhere for sure that he was that he's returning. I guess the only thing you can put it out there is, like, Luque hasn't been the world beater that he was years ago, where everybody was like, "Oh, he's the sneaky contender."
Now, tell us how his best days are behind him, and he's damn near 40 years old, and he shouldn't be fighting anymore.
He's not damn near 40 years old. He is 40 years old, soon to be 41. Yeah.
Wow. Well, get him out. What's he doing in there? How can he be fighting? Why isn't he with his great-grandchildren at that age? The Abu Dhabi card that he's fighting on, though, is really good. So we've got Cheeto Vera on there versus Davison Figueiredo. Hey, speaking of old guys that probably shouldn't be fighting anymore, and I know we've had a lot of fun with Tyson and with Diaz, I say this one with all sincerity. Tony Ferguson should not be fighting anymore. He's taking on Michael Chiesa. That was another one. When I saw it, I was like, really? That Tony Ferguson?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the only thing you can look at is similar to Paddy Pimblett. Like, it's not a guy with a lot of knockout power. Like, Chiesa's going to try and go submit him. So there's that. Like, at least I'm not going to see Tony's face rearranged into an 80-year-old like I did against Michael Chandler, most likely. But I'm with you. Yeah, we haven't seen Tony Ferguson. We've seen it's tough because you watch a guy like Tony Ferguson and you try to explain to people, I try to explain to the youngins out there, Sean, that a mere 7 years ago, this guy was looked upon as the boogeyman. Like, nobody wanted to fight him, that Khabib was terrified, that he intentionally missed weight to not fight him. And now to see this where he's at right now is a bummer. It's a bummer to see it because we all are just looking for flashes and moments. And you're almost hopeful that, man, maybe Tony can just have that one moment and all of a sudden, okay, maybe he'll be okay with walking away. But yeah, until then, you get nervous every time he steps in the octagon. That's just how it is.
It is kind of sad for those youngins that you're talking about because Tony Ferguson, he was on a 14-fight winning streak. He was the boogeyman. He was El Kukui. And now he's on a 7-8-fight losing streak and an underdog in this one. So I actually think he can beat Chiesa. I just don't want to see the fight. And then the main event for that card is Umar Nurmagomedov versus Corey Sandhagen. Does the winner of that just wait and then fight Sean O'Malley at some point down the line? Like, what happens to the winner of this fight?
Yeah, I mean, look, you got to give it to Corey Sandhagen because a lot of guys in his position, we've seen other fighters probably just sit on the sidelines and be like, there's not going to be a better argument than me for the title. And there's been multiple times where he's just gone out there and taken a really tough fight. Umar Nurmagomedov is an absolute monster. And Corey Sandhagen has had no easy feat to try and get back to a shot at the title. But yeah, if you win this fight, I think for either guy, I think there's a tough argument to say that they shouldn't be the next guy to fight Sugar Sean.
That division's just so convoluted, right? Like, it's clearing up a little bit, I suppose. Some guys have fallen by the wayside. Cheeto Vera.
I apologize.
And the like.
Or to Marab. Let me just apologize. Or to Marab, whoever comes out on top.
I'm glad you corrected yourself because I don't know if you've checked those odds, buddy boy. Marab is favored to win that fight against Sean O'Malley. Now, something tells me that a lot of money is going to come in on the Sugar Show by the time that fight goes down. It's like plus 105, so I'm probably making too much out of it. But yeah, Marab definitely a live wire to have that belt wrapped around his waist. Some other news in the world of fighting: Gable Stevenson has signed with the Bills. That's right, the NFL's Buffalo Bills. I love this story. So you're shaking your head out there in Miami. Let me tell you something. For a defensive lineman, there's a few things that you need to be. You need to be big, you need to be strong, and you need to be able to bring guys to the ground. And last time I checked, Stevenson is as good as anybody at any of those three things. We know that he's athletic. Why are you shaking your head? Like, there's a lot of people that think this is stupid, that say it won't work. I'm on the opposite side. I don't see how it can't work.
Simple reason. You said the two words, dude. Buffalo Bills. That's why. I hate that team. Like, I'm not gonna, if you told me that Gable Stevenson took a training camp invite with the Dolphins, I'd be peacocking here telling you how he was going to replace Christian Wilkins' sack numbers. But he's playing for the Bills, so I wish him no luck. I don't know what to tell you. I'm sorry, Gable.
So if this was the same, if it was ended up on the Jets or something, if it was a Dolphins, anybody in the division, screw it. I actually thought once I saw it, I was like, that feels like a very Kansas City Chiefs-like thing to do. My beloved team. They go out there and they sign guys and do all these weird things. And they went out and got a rugby player who's actually going to get some playing time. Before we get out of here, don't know if you saw the footage of Conor McGregor on a yacht. He's got a big fight coming up about a month away. Probably much ado about nothing, right? Like, when it comes to Conor, as long as, let's say, 2 weeks before fight night, his head looks the right size and his heart seems like he's in the right space, I'm fine. I'm not too worried about McGregor.
Me neither. It's one of these things where it's still 5 weeks out or so from the fight. So He's all right. I'm not too worried about it. I think once we get past that Dublin press conference, and it's kind of time to lock in. And usually, but 1 week out, Connor's got a lot of young kids. He's partying with his wife. Honestly, probably better for his marriage that they're blowing off some steam, because I'm sure he's going to be really cranky in camp.
Hey, you would know, you got a bunch of kids yourself. I don't know. I'm the sports machine, Sean Levine. That's Brendan Tobin. Coming up next, the show's going to get a little bit rude when we're joined by Rude Boy Randy Brown before he fights tonight at UFC 302. Don't go anywhere. Rude Boy joins us next on the BetQL Network. Welcome back into Tapped Out with Brendan Tobin on the sports machine, Sean Levine, and it's time to get rude. Let's bring in the rude boy, Randy Brown himself, fighting at UFC 302 on Saturday night. Randy, you won back-to-back fights. You've won 6 out of your last 7. Your confidence must be sky high when you step into that octagon on Saturday night.
Yeah. I mean, I'm never lacking any confidence, no matter what the situation is. You know what I mean? So, yeah. Regardless, I'm ready to rock, man. Ready to go do what it needs to be done.
Ray, I was listening to you yesterday at the media day, and I thought you made a good point, man. Like, you have your only loss, like Sean mentioned, is to a top 5 guy with the whole regard of the rankings. The rankings are kind of crazy because you are a very active fighter, and you see plenty of guys in that division. They're just sitting idly by. I mean, what is the level of frustration like that? Because I feel like the run you've been on, excitement, you're a fan favorite. What the hell do you think it's going to take, man, for you to get the respect you deserve?
I don't know, man. I don't know. I mean, all I could do is bring it to the light and just kind of say how I feel, but it is what it is. I'm not overly concerned about it, but it's kind of wild. I do feel like I do need to be ranked, but I don't know, man. It is what it is. Like I said yesterday, is just, if y'all want to pay me to just beat up on people that y'all think is not as good, I'm okay with that. Just keep running my check and I'm all right, but at some point I will be undeniable. Time tells all, so I just got to chill, keep winning and do what I'm doing, and we'll get there.
But you were mentioning, like, those numbers do matter. I guess as a fighter, you talk amongst yourselves. I know there'll be special cases for guys who have like made it and whatnot, but like, do you feel like as fighters, there should be a minimum amount of times for that to affect? Because like you think in other sports, either whether it be with power rankings or the college football rankings, you got to play. Like you got to play, you got to fight. That stuff always matters. So Do you have a number in mind that like it should affect where your standing is in the sport? Because if you're just sitting on the sidelines, obviously, injuries, I guess, as an exception, but even still, do you have a number in your mind about how much you should fight and how much you should be on the sidelines where it would affect your standing in the sport for that year?
Absolutely, absolutely. I think that you have to fight twice a year. I think you should be able to fight twice a year. And if you and I think that if you turn down a fight, it should affect your ranking as well. You should be bumped down, you know. But I don't make those decisions. You know what I mean? I can just make suggestions. So um it is, again, going back, it is what it is, nothing I can do, you
Yeah.
know. But yeah, I think people should fight once or twice a year.
Well, since we're having the conversation, boys, would that apply to champions also? Like, what would you do with a guy like John Jones?
Hold on one sec. I can't. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, Randy, we were just talking about
Hey.
how often guys should fight, and you were saying they should fight twice a year. Should that apply to a champion also? Like, what would you do with a guy like John Jones?
He should fight once a year. I think John Jones, like guys like that at the top that's been around for a minute, unless it's injury or something. And I mean, again, guys, he's earned to do whatever the hell he wants. He's earned that. He's paid his dues. You know what I mean? But I think the newer champions, they should fight at least once or twice a year. Um, Look at Adesanya. Adesanya was probably one of the most active champions in history. And I think that did wonders for him. So I think there's benefits there, and I think it just moved the sport along. The 185 division was on fire. It's just always great fights. It built other stars. I just think it was just all around better.
Randy, from your standpoint, there's been a lot of talk this week about the new gloves going into this fight. What is your thoughts on them? I think the gold ones look a little goofy, but from the feel standpoint, people are saying about the cuts. What's your thought of the new equipment going into this week?
It's funny. I did a breakdown on my YouTube channel. If you check it out, Rude Boy Studios, I did a whole breakdown and a review of the gloves. Um, Honestly, I think it's a puncher's glove. It is what it is. It's a less padding in the knuckles. They took away a few ounces, but most of the weight is transferred into the back of it, so it's a lot less padding in the front. But the only thing I was concerned about, and I heard someone else mention it, was where the finger holes are. Right? It's like it's stiff where the finger holes. So if I throw a punch like this, right, and not long and not like this, I graze someone, that those finger holes could cut people open. That's really it. I think there's gonna be a lot more cuts, but there should be a lot more knockouts and finishes because it's less padding, and it forces people to punch a little downward. But as far as eye pokes, it does nothing for eye pokes.
Did you like get them early in camp? Like, did you get to try them out as opposed to like a typical camp? Like, because if you're gonna, I imagine that's something you want to feel and get a sense of just of what you're going in with, or are you going in cold? Like, this is the first time you're gonna be firing live with them.
No, I've had them. I've had them. They sent them to me a few weeks ago, and that's why I was able to do a review. I trained with them. I had Sensei wrap my hands, and we worked out in them a few times. You know what I mean? So I'm comfortable with them, but I just know what it is when we start. I'm not punching my sparring partners live with 3.5 ounce gloves. You know what I mean? So now is where the real test is, when I really get to sit down and crack somebody.
Can't wait to see the new gloves. Can't wait to see the rude boy Randy Brown back in the octagon on Saturday night. Hey, Randy, on last week's show, we did the best nicknames in the UFC, and yours certainly came up. How'd
Oh,
you get
nice.
the nickname Rude Boy?
Oh man, rude boy. Rude boy is more of a cultural thing. You know what I mean? It's a term of endearment in Jamaica, but it means troubled youth, really. Just rude. I was just a rude kid, a bad boy, you know what I mean? And then it just kind of stuck. But rude boy is it's just a cultural thing. More so in Jamaica, you like your friends like, yo, rude boy. It's kind of like brethren or something like that. You know what I mean? Here. So
Randy, the main event coming up this week: Dustin Poirier, Islam Makhachev. What do you make of this main event? Where do you think the result goes?
it depends, man. I think it's whoever could get their game plan off first, whoever could start to dictate the fight out the gate. Makachev, we know, is an unbelievable champion with the grappling ability. But I do believe Dustin Poirier is still that guy when it comes to the punching power and everything. So it all depends. I mean, there's a rumor that dude has staff from what I'm seeing this morning, Makachev, so if that's a factor, then maybe that could play into Dustin's favor. But I would love to see Dustin get it done. Overall, I want to see Dustin win. I'm a huge fan of Dustin Poirier. I want to see him get it done. But Makhachev is such a good champion and such an accomplished fighter and accomplished grappler. And he has Khabib. He's been training with Khabib for so long. I'm sure that's super beneficial. So it's hard for me to pick. But if that whole staff thing is real, I'm going with Dustin.
How that fight's going to go, because Islam's so good on the ground, but we know he can knock dudes out. And then you look at Dustin Poirier, he's such a good boxer, but he tried to jump guillotine like 10 times in his last fight. What about you in your fight on Saturday night? Because you finish guys with punches, with kicks, with triangle choke, with rear naked chokes. Do you have a plan for the fight on Saturday?
I can do it all. Honestly, it don't matter. Whatever he gives me, I'm an opportunistic animal. I'm going to dictate the fight to where I want it to go. You know what I mean? But whatever is presented in those moments based off of what I do, I'm not shy to anything. Like I'm open to taking whatever I could get in that moment. You know what I mean? But obviously I'm gonna go out there and just put hands on him out the gate.
Your last fight, you were talking a little bit about your boxing skills yesterday, and your last fight. That was clean. The way you finished your last one, Randy. Where do you feel like you just from a boxing standpoint, even knowing that you have everything from a boxing standpoint in the UFC? I feel like you get slept on a little bit because all of the names of best boxers. Where do you think you rank among best just boxers in the UFC?
I'm up there, man. I know people are not gonna like to hear it because like MMA fans, for some reason, they think that. Let me tell you, boxing is very different from boxing in MMA. It's very different. And if we're talking boxing, pure boxing, I think I'm the best in the entire UFC, and that's gonna be a hot take, but it is what it is, And I think that I rank amongst the MMA boxers. I wouldn't consider myself just a boxer. Do I have some of the best boxing in the game? I believe so. I'd say I'm in the top 5. You know what I mean? But I think that I'm up there, man. Boxing is very different. There's a science to it. You know what I mean? It's not just throwing punches, and not just left hand, right hand, left hand, right hand. You know what I mean? So there's a science behind it, and I think I have a lot of those nuances.
That's where the money's at, rude boy. What are you doing? I mean, I agree with you. You're such a good boxer. UFC, would you ever think about just doing that?
Oh, absolutely. I'm under contract with the UFC, though. It sounds like everyone says that, like, oh yeah, you should box. It's like I can't. I'm under contract with the promotion, and I love being an MMA fighter and a UFC fighter. But when that time comes, I'm sure my name will be in the hat. Hopefully, especially the further I climb in my MMA and my UFC career, because for some reason, only the guys at the top in MMA get those opportunities. You know what I mean? So first and foremost, I need to take care of this and keep building my platform here so that when that time comes and one of them come out of their face and they want to step up, I could take full advantage.
You have a lean on Masvidal, Nate Diaz next month?
Masvidal, Nate Diaz. Shoot. I'm going Masvidal. I feel like Diaz is not really into it. I mean, none of them are really probably not even into it anymore. They're just trying to get a bag. But if I had to go with the more skilled guy, and plus we've had Masvidal beat him already, Diaz in the past. So pure boxing, I'm gonna go with Masvidal right now.
Root boy Randy Brown joining us here on Tapped Out. Hey, before you get out of here, with a win on Saturday night, who are you going to call out? What are you going to say on that microphone?
I can't give you the call out now, but I can't give it up here. That's going to ruin it. But we do have a name, and just stay tuned. Tune into the fight.
Randy, we messed it up.
Excited, dude.
Randy, we're messing it all with Rangers Panthers. Or you sticking with do you mess with hockey at all?
You know what's funny? I went to a hockey game a few years ago, right? My brother-in-law, super fan. Shout out Phil, super fan of just hockey. You know what I mean? He's a big hockey guy, and Rangers. So I'm inclined to go with the Rangers, right? But I didn't know how fast they move on ice. When you watch it on TV, it's a different thing. I went to a game and I was surprised, man. I was surprised at how big these dudes are, how athletic and agile they are, and they move extremely fast, and they hit the board and the glass extremely hard. So yeah, shout out to them. With that being said, I went to an Islanders game, so I'm an Islanders fan. Just based off of that.
I like that. You know
I
what,
like
man?
Barzell,
no bad blood down here from South Florida.
I'm
Come
rocking with the
on, man.
Rangers, though.
You don't mean that then. You should rock with the Panthers. You're the rat.
Hey, nah, I can't because listen, it's New York. I gotta go with New York. I gotta back them.
It makes sense. It's gonna be. It's a good series now. All even at what 2 games apiece. So looking forward to the rest of that. Looking forward to your fight coming up on Saturday night. Rude Boy Randy Brown joining us here on the BetQL Network. Thanks so much, man.
I appreciate it, man.
Coach Khabib Nurmagomedov. I don't even know if technically he's his coach anymore, but a guy that taught him pretty much everything he knows inside that octagon. There were rumors for a while that Khabib was going to come back. You're going to fight me if I say 0% chance we ever see Khabib in the octagon again.
Yeah, I am going to fight you. 0% chance is a very low chance. Well, like, look, Conor McGregor put something to the rumors that and I know Conor's definitely going to dance on any chance he has to get on Khabib if Khabib owes a ton of money in taxes, but it's not an unheard of thing. I mean, Manny Pacquiao went through a lot of these issues where, Manny Pacquiao owed a lot of tax money. And so, when it was thought his career was going to end, he was going to hang it up. Then all of a sudden, he's got more fights on his hands. He's got exhibition fights on his hands. So, we all said Khabib retired early, probably retired with some more earning in front of him. If they offer him something huge, I don't know, man. I'm not putting it past Khabib to make a return at some point.
I don't think it's about the money. Now, maybe it is now because you talk about some of the issues that he's ran into. So maybe he does come back for the money. What do I know about his personal finances? But when he got out, I should say, it wasn't about the money. Remember, at that point, Dana offered him a ton for a fight to come back. The rumors were like 10, 15 million. I don't know if that was actually true, but he could have got a bag if he would have kept fighting. He would have been the cash cow for the promotion at that point when he was the champion. I just think that Khabib, obviously, he always talks about he made the promise to his mom that he was going to get out, and he honored that. Then his dad passed away. And then on top of all that, he completely cleared out the division. What else was there for him to do? So maybe you're right. And Conor wins, and Conor calls him out in the microphone, and Khabib accepts the fight, and he gets his big payday, and everything is right. But I don't know, dude. I just don't see it. I would be shocked if somehow Khabib ends up back in the UFC.
Seems like I swayed you. 10-9 me.
No, I don't think so. All right, I'll tell you on this. If you get this one right, I've got the answer behind my back. Who's more likely to come back, Khabib or Ronda Rousey?
Khabib.
See, you got it wrong. I'll take the round 10-9. I can see Rousey coming back. She's such an ego on her. Maybe she could end up back in the octagon for a couple of more fights. Nick Diaz is back in the UFC. You're going to fight me if I say his brother Nate should re-sign, I would think, within the next few months, right? Like, he's got to be next in line. When I saw that Diaz was getting in a fight in the UFC, I just assumed that it was Nate and that they lined something up for him. Nate's got to be back pretty soon.
Yeah, it was interesting. I talked to Masvidal a couple of weeks ago, and he had said that there was almost like a wink deal with the UFC that, like, if they allowed Nate and Masvidal to do this, they'll allow them to do these fights, or at least Masvidal. I don't think Nate has to get permission, but Masvidal said if I did it, that he was going to go back for the UFC. So I just think it's natural, that Nate's going to make a return. I don't know how many people are going to be really even into this boxing. I love Masvidal, but I'm not even that crazy about him versus Nate Diaz. Like, I want to see these guys in the cage, and I don't care if it's a UFC cage, a Bellator cage, a PFL cage, but I want to watch them in mixed martial arts, and it makes too much sense. There's too many big fights. Nate's too big a star to not have him come back either.
You confused the hell out of me about a minute and a half ago, real time. I don't know what you were trying to say. So we do agree that Nate will be back. Were you trying to say that Masvidal can end up back also in the UFC?
Yeah, because he was saying that he basically is allowed to do this Nate Diaz fight if he promised to come back. Because remember, Masvidal said he was retired, and now it seems like he's going to make a return at some point, probably the next Miami card. Whenever the next Miami card is down here, I would expect Masvidal's UFC return.
Okay.
I'm not reporting that. I'm just doing logical assumption based on what he told me in an interview 3 weeks ago.
Sure.
But obviously,
I was talking to Masvidal, and he said this. So
So obviously, yeah, and so obviously, if he's coming back, I obviously think that Nate's coming back. Nate got? What he got a Masvidal fight, he got a Jake Paul fight. What else is there? Unless he's just so hard up against the UFC that he wants to go to PFL and fight Jake Paul. I don't really know what else is what else is out there for him.
Yeah, I don't see that happening. We'll get you updated on the Hafez and Mickey Gall fight that just went down in the third.
Good
Scores
scrap.
coming up. Sounds like it's going to be at least. It seemed like the Gall lost the first couple of rounds, but we'll see what the scorecards end up saying. You never know with these UFC referees. UFC 302 tonight. We're breaking it down here on the BetQL Network. Brendan Tobin and me, the sports machine, Sean Levine, trying to make some money together here along the way. Speaking of money and speaking of Conor McGregor, if I gave you $3 million and I said Nate Diaz, Conor McGregor is going to happen at some point in the next 2 years, you're going to bet that it does or does not?
Oh, I'm going to bet that it does. I'm going to bet that it does because I think win or lose for McGregor, I feel like that's the obvious place to go next. You know, like, all right, maybe win.
I wouldn't say
win.
That's not
maybe
obvious.
the win if he loses for sure, it's the obvious place to go. If he wins, maybe they'll put up some fugazi, run to the title for him. But loss wise, yeah, that's the safety net.
So loss wise, I totally agree. If he loses, that fight's still on the table. And it's to the point with like Nate Diaz and you mentioned Masvidal and Conor, we don't really care if they win or lose anymore at this point in their career. Like let's squeeze all the juice out of the orange, right? So it'd be better if it's coming off of a win, but if it's coming off of a win, then the reason I say it's not obvious for Conor is then he could possibly fight Islam for the belt, get the revenge on Khabib, or he could have the biggest fight in the history of the UFC. I don't know what weight they would do it at, but he could fight the Sugar Show. So it's not obvious that his next fight would be against Nate. That's the one I would want the most.
I understand, but that's a big problem that you're bringing up there with the weight. Like, he's fighting Michael Chandler. Michael Chandler's a 155-pound fighter, and they're fighting at 170. Like, it's a big issue. Do we really know that Conor can make that weight anymore? His age, the muscle that he's put on, the injuries, like, I don't know, man. I don't know if it's possible for Conor to get down there. So if he's going to fight for a title, I would say the most likely place is he's going to do it at 170. So I don't know that it's likely that Conor is going to get a title shot next, because I don't think that him versus Leon, if Leon were to beat Bilal, is like this sexier matchup than Nate Diaz. If you told me in a vacuum, yeah, he could fight Islam and it'd be at 155 pounds, cool, but I'm not sure that he can do it.
Conor McGregor, the best trash talker of all time. Actually, let me correct myself. The second best trash talker of all time, because we've got the best coming up here in just a little while. Chael Sonnen, Uncle Chael, the American gangster himself, sat down with Brendan Tobin. Apparently, BT, you thought that Chael, we couldn't get too close, huh? I can't let you get too close because you didn't let me in on that interview with you. But it's all good. I'm not bitter about that. Just one of my favorite fighters of all time.
I thought that you said that like the last time you guys got into a beef, or was that with Yoel Romero? I can't keep up with all the people that you.
It was Yoel Romero at the Super Bowl, and it wasn't a beef. We just had a little bit of a language barrier. Chael and I actually had a really fun interaction at the Super Bowl. I walk up to him, and I whisper in his ear, "Anderson Silva, you absolutely suck." And he turns around, and he just goes, "That's true." Chael's great.
I think it's crazy that he's going to be boxing in a couple of weeks against Anderson Silva, and then he's going to the Hall of Fame for their fight pretty soon. I don't, it's everybody's boxing. Everybody's out here. Everybody's out there getting into the ring.
Second time, by the way, that you've screwed me on one of my favorite fighters, that you just chose to do the interview on your own. You had on No Love Cody Garbrandt, and you were just like, "Okay, by the way, I had on Cody Garbrandt." So anyway,
all you do is hose down Cody Garbrandt.
Doesn't mean I don't want to talk to him. Yeah, I think he's going to get his ass knocked out every fight he gets in, and I win money against him, and I'm usually right. But I still love me some Cody Garbrandt, dude. His fight against Dominic Cruz is one of my 5 favorite fights of all time. Anyway, Chael Sonnen coming up on the show here in just a little while. You mentioned Bilal Muhammad. Bilal said that Islam can go up to 185 and beat DDP right now, and I agree with that. Islam seems like he's one of those guys where if he wanted to in any weight class, kind of like Alex Pereira, that he could have all the belts. You going to fight me?
A lot easier said than done, man. I mean, when Israel Adesanya looked like the most untouchable guy in the world, he went up to try fight Jan Blachowicz and didn't go too good for him. So it's a cute thing to say, but fighting guys who walk around at 230 when you're used to fighting guys who walk around at 180 is a big difference. So I'm not saying maybe he couldn't eventually do it, but remember, Kamaru Usman talked about this for a while too. Like he wanted to go up to 205 to fight Blachowicz, and it never happened. And it would be a cool thing to show that you could do, but it's a big jump, man. It's a big jump. So I'm not quite sold on that one.
Sean O'Malley once referred to you as the fat guy on the right. I disagree with that. I would say svelte.
And
right now, O'Malley is the underdog in his fight coming up against Merab. You're going to fight me if I say, I think that's right. At least to pick him. This is a very even fight.
I got to be honest with you, like getting Sean O'Malley as an underdog in this one intrigues me a lot because I am usually used to him, getting the rub in the idea that people like betting on Sean O'Malley. He's a kid's favorite. One of the things that was interesting going to a Sean O'Malley championship fight was the age of all of his fans are very, very young. And that was in a split crowd where there was a lot of Cheeto fans because he had basically all of Ecuador come into the Kaseya Center to root for him. But it was noticeable that anybody that was a Sean O'Malley fan was very, very young. So I feel like he's going to have that for a while. Maybe they're not even old enough to gamble yet. I don't know what the issue is there. But I think with Merab, he's obviously got the noticeable ground advantage that usually will get you the lean in the odds if they think it's a pretty even fight. But there's, Sean's been shutting a lot of people up with his performances. He's looked really, really good. He's looked pretty damn dominant in his win of the title and his fight over Cheeto. Fought Petr Yan when nobody thought that he would do it. So I don't know. There might be some value in Sean O'Malley as a dog that night.
His resume is getting pretty nice. You make a good point, though. Usually you have to pay a pretty penny if you're going to bet on the Sugar Show. If I can get him at underdog money, and he's so popular that at some point he's going to become the favorite, probably on fight night. So get in where you fit in if you want O'Malley money. Chael Sonnen coming up here in just a few minutes on Tapped Out. Speaking of Chael, you're going to fight me if I say, and I wouldn't say this to him, his most memorable fights, pretty much all losses. I was thinking back the John Jones fight, the Anderson Silva fight, the Rashad Evans fight. I mean, he beat some dudes too now, right? Beat up Yushin Okami, beat Michael Bisping. But most of the fights that I remember Chael in, he lost, especially the Silva fight. You going to fight me?
No, I'm not going to fight you. I think that's absolutely. I mean, look, he's going into the Hall of Fame for a loss. I mean, it's the launch of probably everything in his career because, I would say Chael is, and I don't know if this is an insult to him or not, but I would say he's probably no more as a mouth than he is of what he did in the cage. If he would have been able to beat Anderson Silva in that fight, who knows what that does for his career, but to get people the idea of how dominant Anderson Silva was at that time, to even make him look mortal basically over the entire fight before he ends up coughing it up, essentially, it speaks to what that means for this guy to have this kind of staying power in the sport, whether that be as a commentator or whether that be as a fighter. But yes, the record is dicey. The record is dicey, but he knows how to make these rivalries fun and for people to care.
A lot like Nate Diaz. Nobody cares if he wins or loses. They care about what he says. The fights are always fun. Usually he's in them even when he loses. And in the case of Chael Sonnen, if you haven't watched the fight that BT was referring to against Anderson Silva, this is now years ago, Chael beat him up for 4 rounds. I mean, it wasn't even close. And then Anderson Silva wraps his legs around his neck, and eventually Chael taps out. Speaking of tapping out, we got a hockey game later on this evening. I think the Rangers tap out. I think it's all Panthers tonight. You going to fight me?
Wouldn't fight you, man. Been calling cats at 6 from the start. In that tonight at the Amaranth Bank Arena, the Rats are going to be flying, and the Cats are going on to their second straight Stanley Cup final.
Will you do that thing where you turn your pool red? And by that thing, I assume that means you've got a red light somewhere in your pool.
Hard to say. We'll have to find out. You have to you'll have to follow me on Twitter tonight and see if it's up there.
Ooh, Okay, looking forward to that. I assume it's not like a bunch of food dye or something, right? That you put in the pool. That can't be good for the skin or the kids or the dog. That can't
Yeah,
be good
it's
for
actually
anyone.
no, it's actually rat blood. That's I
Okay.
have a bag of it just to make the pool look like that. You know, I'm all in. When I'm all in, Sean.
Sounds like it. Rats and cats and six tonight. We got fights tonight also. But before all that, how about this? The American Gangster joins us next. Chael Sonnen on Tapped Out right here on the BetQL Network.
Welcome back into Tapped Out here on the BetQL Network. In just a few minutes here, we are going to talk to the bad guy, Chael P. Sonnen, of course, ESPN MMA analyst, soon to be UFC Hall of Famer as he is going in for his fight against Anderson Silva, the iconic first fight. But before we get into that, we're going to talk to Chael a lot about this upcoming main event, Dustin Poirier, Islam Makhachev. And one of the things that when I've bet this fight and I've looked at this fight, the value there to me is on Dustin Poirier. I understand why Islam Makhachev is the favorite. First of all, favorites with grappling, it just goes hand in hand typically, unless there's like a big record or discrepancy in the amount of talent that they've taken on. So you understand that Islam was going to get the nod there anyway. I think this is a lot going back to the Alexander Volkanovski fight, where we saw a guy in Alexander Volkanovski who is one of the best fighters on the planet, and he has just incredible odds against him, and you just never get a fighter that good at those numbers. And so we're looking at Dustin Poirier, and you're talking about I can get Dustin Poirier 6-1 by knockout. On the money line, it was sitting 4-1, 5-1 in some places going into this matchup. It's so tough to get a number, and that's what I saw. I saw Dustin Poirier by knockout last week as high as plus 750, and that was the first bet that I jumped on, just because, again, this guy is one of the best boxers, one of the most damaging punchers in all of the sport. It's just not out of the realm of possibility for me that he can catch Islam Makhachev with something at some point. If you are in the favor of the champion, though, and you think, Tobin, you're wasting your time, I honestly think that Makhachev by decision is a good place to go. People will say that Poirier leaves himself open for those submissions, and that we've seen him lose like that to Charles Oliveira. We've seen him lose like that to Khabib. I get that. That is why submission is the lowest method odd at plus 105 for Islam. But Islam by decision at 4-1. If you do like Islam and you don't want to pay the minus 650 for him, Dustin Poirier is a tough guy to finish just in general. Islam will, has just not shown that he's as dominant as Khabib Nurmagomedov, that he will have those moments. And I just think that for me, him getting the nod because he can control the ground, like if you're going to go safe bet with the favorite, but you're going to get the most value, him by decision to me is the best play there. So we'll get into it right now with the bad guy, Chael P. Sonnen, ESPN's Chael Sonnen, as he is going to be on the broadcast this week on the analyst table for UFC 302 in New Jersey. ESPN's own MMA analyst, the bad guy, the legend, Chael Sonnen, joining us here. You guys, of course, can also watch him on the new ESPN show, Good Guy, Bad Guy, with the great Daniel Cormier. Chael, thanks for the time, man. Really appreciate it.
People vacation in South Florida, by the way. My wife just hit me up. She wants to go on vacation in South Florida. Is there like something you do? I don't think Disneyland's there. Do people come and beaches or something like that?
Beaches, snorkeling. We got alligator boat rides if you're into that, Chael. You know, all kinds of different things.
All right. All right. So she's not putting me on. Like, this is an actual serious question. South Florida is a destination then.
That's what they say. That's what it's. It's definitely better than that. You know, I'm sorry that you're in New York. I mean, I know that's got to be, you know, hellacious for you being.
They took this beautiful town and they just cover it in concrete, and then everybody acts like that's something cool. It's awful. Pizza's $1 in New York because pizza's worth $1 in New York. But back to you, please. What were we talking about?
So Dustin Poirier. He's
got to fight this weekend. Hey, Dustin Poirier's got to fight this weekend. Make sure you let people know. They're going to want to know that. Like, if they're fight fans, they're going to want to know that.
They're going to want to know that, but he keeps telling us he's jumping this gilly, right? And I'm not a big betting man, Chael, but hey, 23-1's 23-1, and the man is telling us that he's doing it. I got to throw something on it. Yes, he's gonna. You got to think he's gonna try and get this through in this championship fight.
On accident, right? Like, have you ever had your parent or your teacher tell you, okay, now, whatever you do, don't say as you're going into something or performance, don't say this word. And then the word always comes out because that's what's happening with Dustin. This is a big joke. Everyone's telling him, don't do the gilly, don't do the gilly. So then he's joking, saying, I'm going to do the gilly, I'm going to do the gilly. I also am with you. I think the gilly is going to happen. I don't know that I think he's going to finish him. I do think I think he locks it up and he jumps and gives up position, trying the guillotine that he's joking about doing. He's going to forget it's a joke.
Have you ever done what he did in the court? Because the video of him and his coaches telling him, hey, don't do it anymore. And he goes, but I can do it. Has there been anything in a fight where you were like told, hey, don't do that, but you just felt in your bones that you had to do it in a fight?
No, but I did in a wrestling match, if that counts. I mean, sometimes you just get something through your head and you're so stubborn. Like, I'm a father now, so I see the world different. But I remember having a father, and he was never right. I mean, I really believe that. I know more. He doesn't understand, and he's on the outside. And all he does is care about me. And I'm thinking, he doesn't, I can do it. Let me try one more time. It never worked. The move never worked. I would always lose the match over it. But yes, when you get that stubbornness or you think that you have something, look, we're trained. One thing about the guillotine, I must say, in Dustin's defense, is it is a move that when you see, you got to go and you got to all the way commit because you're jumping, you're sacrificing position, your hands are under the chin, your hand slips 1 inch, you lose the technique. So he's actually trained that when he feels that to go, he was just following his training in his defense.
Do you, if he doesn't go that
kind of analysis, you cannot get this kind of analysis anywhere.
If he doesn't go,
don't do this kind of analysis. Really, this is outstanding. And by the way, as we're talking about him, Islam Makhachev is actually the champion. People are gonna. You should tell people that. This way, it's on pay-per-view. ESPN's working that you should get this out.
Chael, if he does not do that route, if he doesn't do the bad advice of going for the guillotine, how does he get this done against Islam? He's a monster. He obviously is the champion. How does he get it done? In the expert opinion, how would he get it done to beat Islam?
Okay, now I'm not trying to show any kind of a favoritism here. I'm not doing that, but Dustin is a handsome guy, and he likes his family, and he likes to keep to himself, and he doesn't use profanity very often. And I tell you that because people then decide that he's a really nice young man. He is amongst the dirtiest, grittiest cage fighters I have ever seen, and there is no point in that match where he is going to check out. There is no point in that match where he's going to concede to Islam or he's going to think Islam's better. And a lot of guys do. You lose a round, maybe you lose 2, maybe you lose 3. Now, the fight's out of control when you've lost 3 rounds. That's simple math. There's only 2 left. Well, that was the situation he just found himself in against Saint Denis. He lost 3 straight rounds, won 1 exchange, and put him down. And so when you ask how can Dustin win, Dustin's going to lose moments of this fight, for sure. He's going to lose exchanges, for sure. He's going to lose positions, and he's most likely to lose rounds. I cannot guarantee you he's going to lose the fight. He only needs to win 1 second to win the match, and Islam knows that. And that actually makes Islam a little bit more dangerous, but I'm sharing with you, Dustin's one of those guys, man. They love to say, when announcers don't have anything else to say, they like his low-hanging fruit will say, don't blink. No, when Dustin fights, it's real. Don't blink. Don't assume you know anything.
Do you feel if Islam gets this done, the idea that he could match up to the legacy of Khabib, is that a possibility? Do you feel like this man really does have the chance to match the guy whose shadow he kind of came into the UFC with?
He's going to have a very hard time for a couple of reasons. First up, he doesn't want that. he's going to be the first to push back and say, no, don't do that to me. Nate Diaz did that with his brother Nick. As Nate's star started to rise, he would go out of his way to say, Nick is the general. Nick is in charge. It was just one of these very sweet things. But when we, the media, started to understand how important that was, and I'm just sharing because it's just opinion, right? Like those two are never going to actually compete. You have Dustin Poirier here. That's very relevant because that's a common opponent. And you see, when you are fighting for that legacy of Khabib, when you have a common opponent, you not only have to beat the guy in Dustin, you got to beat him faster and you got to beat him easier, or it goes against your perceived legacy and that narrative. So, but Islam does have a way to go, by the way. In his answer to outdo Khabib, it's not to be 29-0 because he already let that O go, but double champ status, which is something that Dana White has already offered Islam. Few people know that, but at UFC 300, Dana already suggested that opportunity. I'm going to bring that to you now. You know what? I'm hearing myself right now. You cannot get this kind of analysis. This is top shelf MMA coverage. I mean, you are so fortunate to have me on right now. This is amazing. I'm hearing myself. It is an amazing job I'm doing.
This is why you're a Hall of Famer, sir. This is why at the end of the end of the month, you're going into the Hall of Fame. What did that mean to you?
Man, it was so cool. You don't get surprises in life, and like I don't expect anybody to like have my already charmed experience that get a little more sprinkle on it. But for me, man, it was the coolest thing. My mom didn't know. She always watches. She wasn't watching. My wife was there with me at the venue. It was a complete surprise. Looking back, there was some something. I could have known something was up, but I didn't. They brought me down to cage side and said I was going to do an interview with Megan O'Leary. I thought I was doing an interview, so it was awesome. You know what? It was awesome.
Are you excited this boxing match that you have coming up with Anderson? That it's all kind of going to be in the same time frame?
I am excited about that. Anderson, that'll represent the second time I've beaten somebody 3 times. And this time it's in boxing, which might give him like kind of sway things a little bit to help to even the field. But I will be more than ready to go. I've thought about him every day for 10 years, and I don't imagine he ever thinks about me. Now, I think that it is a meaningful difference. I've had a fantasy that an opportunity like this presented itself. If I could get within arm's reach of him, I would have already punched him.
Chael, this is going to lead up. Are you still beefing with Jorge Masvidal? Like, is this going to lead to something with him? The last time we spoke to you was before 299 down here, and apparently, like, he was searching for you all over the streets. So, where is the Masvidal beef at right now?
Oh, the Masvidal it's red hot. I've offered, I've suggested these type things. I've actually been a little surprised how quiet he went. I thought I went and teed him up at one point, and I figured I was going to have a little pushback, and he acted like he didn't even hear it. And I won't bully the young man. Like, if he's changed his mind, that would be very wise. If he hasn't changed his mind, I will do it for him sooner or later. 2
more before we get you out of here. John Jones. Who do you consider right now, Chael, the champ? He's been out for a long time. We got this great Aspinall Blades fight coming up. I understand why the young division wants to move on, but where are we at? What do you look at John as the champion right now? Should he relinquish? What do you think we should do with the heavyweight division?
Okay, now, I would never spare the lash as it goes to John Jones, but we must tell a story the way that it happened. He has no ability to relinquish. Dana White and the company make those decisions, and we try to show a man grace when he's injured. Right, when we have what we call a closet champion that won't fight, he's injured. Oh, by the way, he happened to be filming the workout at the time that he got in. So, I mean, we've got a documentation that this happened. I'm only sharing for you. No, there's nothing wrong with that. We had Francis Ngannou was out and in a contract dispute. But because Francis's leg was injured, Dana didn't take the belt off him. No matter how mad he was, we showed him grace. And that's what's happening to John here as well. It's not holding up Tom Aspinall. Tom's got every right to be calling for the opportunity. But the truth is, if John's not back, then Tom isn't missing out on an opportunity. He's feel free to go out there and compete, of which, by the way, against Curtis Blades, he's going to do. No, John has done nothing wrong. He just simply hasn't. The idea of preserving John and Stipe as opposed to recognizing our interim champion as the number 1 contender, that's a little bit of a new idea. And that could be a different conversation. But can we put it on John Jones? Man, not even a little. We just can't.
Can't get an analysis like that anywhere else. You can't do it. You can't do it.
You can't get that. People's mind don't work that way. They don't work as good. Their mouth, that doesn't flow the same. You know what they try to do to John Jones? They try to get John Jones on a drug test because the person that came over to get the sample, because he hurt their feelings. I don't know if you saw that. There was a police report an action because John hurt somebody's feelings. That, in all fairness, come on, man. Give the guy a break.
Conor McGregor's making his return soon. How worried should everybody made a big deal? He was partying his ass off this week in Ireland. Is this a big deal? Is 6 weeks out partying like that or appearing to party like that? Is that a big deal as he gets ready for Michael Chandler?
Yes, it is, because he already has a big problem. And the problem is that he's not doing this at 155 pounds. And where that becomes relevant is like what you weigh. It's not some magical thing that because you paid $9 and bought some guy's book on Amazon that can tell you about. It's calories in versus calories out. So if you're not weighing what you used to weigh, then you either took in more calories or more than likely you didn't burn as many, which means you're not training as hard. That is the bigger story because that speaks to discipline. And that's one thing that Chandler had. Chandler was willing to go 55. He's willing to go 57. He's willing to go 87. McGregor needed 170. And I do think in light of that, where you're going to be somebody like me, and you're going to stand back and you're going to question that discipline. Because should you have to go the duration, which is into the 5th round, you don't get there on your good looks. You don't get there on good DNA. You don't get there on experience. You have to have those lungs under you from paying a price in the gym. And I just bring it to you that when you see Conor doing something like that, a lot of times it's marketing. This guy appears to always be a step ahead. Not for nothing, the club that he was partying in, he happens to own. So there is an angle there. And the whiskey he was pretending to drink, he happens to own the brand. There is an opportunity. There was nothing more in that bottle than water. We don't truly know. And a lot of times with McGregor or any great magician, look at this hand so you don't see what this hand is doing. On the other side of it, there's a chance that he is unfocused and that he's starting to tell a story of which is excuse. In all fairness, and a lot of athletes, no matter how great, do this. They will start to lay a foundation for an excuse ahead of time. That isn't something that somebody as confident as McGregor, who sold confidence, would generally do. But he chose not only to go and do that, he chose to make sure that it was videoed, and he released the video. He's telling a story of some sort.
Chael Sonnen, go watch him. Good guy, bad guy. Watch his coverage this week. UFC 302 on ESPN. You can buy the pay-per-view, ESPN Plus. Our guy, Dustin Poirier, against Islam Makhachev. Look at the biggest arms in West Lynn, Oregon right there. Hall of Famer, thank you so much, Chael.
All right, we are about to get you the method to the madness for UFC 302. Of course, that is Dustin Poirier and Islam Makhachev. Dustin right now is a 4-1 underdog. Islam right now a heavy favorite at BetMGM at minus 550. Welcome back into the show. Brendan Tobin, Sports Machine, Sean Levine, final segment. And then we wrap things up. Then we watch the fights. BT watches a little bit of hockey as the Panthers game has gotten underway against the Rangers. Also, Deontay Wilder just got knocked out, BT.
Yeah, he was fighting over in Saudi Arabia against Zheli Zhang, giant heavyweight, older. And they both actually were coming off of losses against Joe Parker. But he was put down pretty brutally in the 5th round. So back-to-back losses for Deontay Wilder, who's also getting up there. You know, he's going to be, I think, 38, 39 in October. So, you know, we talked about this a little bit with Tyson Fury. Is this crop of heavyweights is kind of hitting a point where you're wondering how much longer is part of this era.
Who would have thought that at this point Anthony Joshua would be the one left standing and maybe the biggest name, like the biggest moneymaker out of the three right now? Anyway, enough about boxing. Let's talk some MMA. UFC 302. The Octagon is in Jersey tonight. Islam Makhachev, the favorite in the main event, hasn't lost a fight in 9 years, takes on South Florida's and Louisiana's Dustin Diamond Poirier. Poirier plus 400 right now. BT, how do you think this fight's going down?
Look, no surprise. I'm going with Dustin Poirier. You guys know I will say that with great bias. He's probably my favorite active fighter on the roster right now. I'm not even doing this with the whole, you know, storyline thing. And I've heard some wacky stuff. People saying there's mystical stuff in the air. I honestly think that some of that stuff's a disrespect to Dustin Poirier. I think that he is good enough to get this win. I think just somewhere over these 5 rounds, I think there's going to be part of it where Islam maybe plays a mistake in it too, which can happen in fights. I have a bet on Dustin by sub just because if he hits that guillotine and I don't have money on it, I'm going to feel sick. So I have a small little something on the 23-1 him by sub, but I did get it. I got him at plus 750 by knockout a week ago. It's around 6-1 now for him by knockout, and that's where I'm going. I'm going DP the Diamond by KO.
That's awesome value. Dustin Poirier 6-1 to knock out any human being. I don't care if it's Islam. I don't care if he hasn't lost a fight in the last 9 years in the UFC. I love that. I'm going to sprinkle a little bit also on that 23-1 just because I've got a rule. If you mention something at least a half a dozen times on the show, I got to put money on it. And I think you said Dustin by guillotine at least 8 or 9, maybe 10 times during the show. So I'm not going to be the guy that watches him choke out Islam tonight in the main event and doesn't have money on it 23-1. So I've already sprinkled a little bit of that also. And then just that 4-1. Like, it just looks too good. Maybe it goes to the cards. Maybe Dustin doesn't finish, although BT, Dustin is a finisher of epic proportions, right? He finishes like an 85% rate, 13 out of his last 16 fights. Wins, I should say, 18 out of his last 22 fights overall have been finishes inside the octagon. So I don't know about you, but I'd be pretty surprised if this one ends up going to the cards.
Well, I don't know. See, that's the interesting thing with this is like you look at the method odds for Islam and it's plus 100 for him by sub, plus 300 for him by KO, and almost 5-1 for him to win on the cards. And I feel like
that's the best value.
That's the best value for me. Like if you are Islam and you're not believing into the storyline ending, I just think to me that's the best value. Dustin's a very hard guy to put away. I could definitely see a scenario where this goes to the cards for sure. But if it does go to the cards, I think Islam's going to get the nod because you would just think he's going to have the more control. So if you are Team Makhachev and you're looking for an easier way to bet this one, I think that's a pretty good number for him to win this fight.
Confident that I think it could go to the cards. I feel the exact opposite. Like, I don't really see that happening at all. I think if Islam gets it to the ground, it's going to be a short fight, kind of like the Charles Oliveira fight, where it was cool for a second until it wasn't, and then eventually that snake ate the mouse, and it was over with. I think that if it stays on the feet, that's probably not the best case scenario for Islam. I definitely think that Dustin has shown us that he can knock guys out, that he has the one-punch power. It wasn't long ago that he did it to Benoit Saint-Denis after trying to choke him out 10 different times. So very curious to see if this fight is a stand-up fight. It ends up on the mat, and who can adjust the most as the fight goes along. But I don't see this thing going a whole lot further than 3. If you maybe try to pick around, that's the one that I think it ends in. All right, let's move on to the co-main event. Sean Strickland, who's been white hot, right, over the last couple of years, minus 250 favorite against Paulo Costa. You want to talk about finishers? I was surprised. I just did this research during the break. Actually, I was watching the UFC fight, and they did it for me on the bottom line. 86% of fights in Costa's career have been finishes. How does the co-main go down?
Yeah, this is one where I don't see a finish just because I think Sean Strickland is going to win this fight, and most of Sean Strickland's fights go to the scorecards. I mean, he's not a guy who goes pedal to the metal too much, and you know, especially like if it's not something that happens probably early, he usually gets his opponents frustrated because they can't hit him clean. He's got a good gas tank. He's used to being in main events, even if he's been with. Even before he got into the championship picture, he was main eventing a lot of fight nights. So he's so programmed for a 5-round fight, whereas Costa, everybody's hoping to go see that explosive knockout power, that he's going to do something wild. Maybe he'll have his moments, but this is just such a hard guy to hit in Sean Strickland. And I just don't think we've seen that Paulo Costa be that guy in a long time against some names that you wouldn't find that impressive these days. So I get the clash of styles, but I agree with Sean Strickland. I think that Paulo Costa's got to come with something almost lucky to win this fight. So I'm going Sean Strickland by decision. It's just under 2-1 right now, but better than his money line number because I think it's gonna go to the cards.
This is one, BT, where you don't want to pick the poster. What I mean is if you're looking at the poster and you see Sean Strickland and you see Paulo Costa, Sean Strickland looks kind of like, somebody's uncle that's starting to give up a little bit, a dad bod, lots of chest hair, you know what I'm saying? And then you got Paulo Costa, who just looks like a Greek god. Although I see Strickland, and it's mainly because you've talked me into it, dominating this fight a lot like he did against Izzy. Now, obviously, Izzy has a completely different style than Paulo Costa does, but if it goes deep, Sean Strickland's proven that he gets better, really, as the fight goes along. So I got Strickland by decision also, even though we can't make a lot of money on that at plus 150. We are in agreement. Kevin Holland is a big favorite against King Michael, plus 240, the underdog. Kevin Holland, minus 300. Where's your money going in this fight?
I'm going to go with Kevin Holland. I'm going to take him by sub to win this. The last two from Olachechik, his two losses have been by sub, so I think that weakness is there. We've seen Holland polish a lot of that part of his game. I think this could be a very entertaining fight, but I do think that at some point Holland's going to look for that finish in that way. And, a lot of money. Actually, looking at it now, there's been some change, so a lot of people are taking him by KO now. That's now the closest method odd rate at like just 2-1, but I'm still sticking with him by sub at plus 260.
Dang, that has changed, because when I got in on that, I got 3-1 on Holland about an hour ago. He can obviously finish fights in a million different ways. Alex Morono takes on Nico Price. That one went from the undercard to the main, plus 220 for the hybrid. The favorite, Morono, is minus 225. Nico Price lost 4 out of 5. He's lost 6 out of his last 8 fights, throwing a no decision in there. This is one of those where Nico Price probably has a lot of pressure, knowing that dude needs to win a fight like this.
Yeah, it needs to win something. It's not a fight I'm that crazy about betting. I think that if I was going to go one way, just like looking at how the odds are breaking down, I could see these guys going very back and forth. It's a 3-round fight, so I could see it going the decision, being strong. And Nico's 8-1 right now by decision, so I'm going to just rock with that, just simply on value. But I don't love the bets on that fight.
I don't love it either. I was going to play Morono by knockout, and then I saw that was only even money. You say I can get the hybrid to go the distance and win the fight on the cards at 8-1? All right, that sounds pretty good to me for a fight that I think is actually pretty even. Earlier on in the show, we had the Rude Boy on. Minus 185, Randy Brown is in his fight. I assume you're putting money on new friend of the show, Rude Boy Randy Brown.
Oh, 100%. 3-1 KO for the Rude Boy. I think he's getting his respect tonight. He also sounded like he's got a call out. Like he wouldn't give us the call out, man. He said he was holding that close to the vest. So I think that he's got something special planned if he gets the win over EZD tonight. And I'm going to bet that tonight for sure. 3-1 by him by KO. I'm loving that.
I'm going to bet that by knockout also at 3-1, coming off of a really impressive knockout. And if he does have another fight of the night and back-to-back awesome knockouts, then he's going to be ranked. And then whoever he calls out, you'll probably be scared, because Randy Brown is a guy that's got good mojo because he came on the show earlier today. And on top of that, he's hotter than Farrah Fawcett and Forest Fire. He's been winning a lot of fights recently. Roman Kopylov takes on Cesar Almeida. I like Kopylov like you do in that fight. What about the other Almeida, Jailton Almeida and Alex Romanov? Where's your money going in that fight?
I'm going to go with Jailton. I just think it's a desperation fight for him. I think he needs it. And I think he knows that he needs a good performance. You get knocked off of the main card after just, being a main event fighter a couple of cards ago. I think that, that says something, that you need some kind of an impressive performance. So, nothing flashy. I think he'll get it done by sub, which is about plus 100 right now. But I think that's how he gets the win over Romanov tonight.
Grant Dawson in the octagon right now, for what it's worth, against Joe Selecki. Grant Dawson, KGB, came into this one as a huge favorite, minus 600 at BetMGM. Looking forward to the fights tonight. The co-main, once again, Paulo Costa versus Sean Strickland. You can get Costa right now at BetMGM at 2-1. And you get in where you fit in if you like the Diamond Dustin Poirier, like me and BT. 4-1 right now for El Diamante. And who's going to pay that minus 550 on Islam? Even though I get it, he hasn't lost a fight in the last 9 years. Thanks to the Rude Boy Randy Brown for joining us. Thanks to the American Gangster Chael Sonnen. For Kenny, for Jake, and for my co-host Brendan Tobin, I'm the sports machine, Sean Levine. Enjoy UFC 302 tonight, and have a good Saturday night. We'll talk to you next week right here on Tapped Out.